Good evening, mi gente. This is Ray Collazo, and you're watching and listening to the Founded Translation Bomba Live simulcast. Founded Translation is the show that stacks truth about politics and today's hottest issues. And Bomba Live is our perpetual Puerto Rican celebration. And, it's getting a little warmer. We're only weeks and months, a few months away from the big Bomba Live 2 we'll talk about later in the show. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're going to have a fantastic episode. Later on in the show, you're going to hear some of my hot takes on the hottest news political headlines. And actually going to stretch my hoops knowledge. We're going to talk a little geeky hoop stuff. It is March Madness. So at the end of the show, we're going to have some fun with some different topics. And we're actually even going to translate some very heady mental health topics into language that we understand in the idioma, and probably 3 or 4 languages, if you count all the dialects we're going to speak. And we have a very, very special guest. But first, I wanted to introduce one of my regular co-hosts, someone that has a tremendous platform in her own right. It's so incredible. It's extra, as in Dionely extra.
Hi, how are you? I'm so glad to be here. I always love being on your platform. Dionely ETC. It's a Dionely, etc. Like, it's a combination of a lot of things. It's an homage to one of my favorite artists ever, Selena. You remember her shop was Selena ETC. So it was a little bit of everything.
Well, as we all know, we would never do anything to hurt Selena. For one unfortunate exception. Dionely, before we introduce our very special guest, how are you doing? I know it's you're always breaking the internet or having some very in-depth conversations on your various platforms. So tell us a little, you're in your posh radio studio there. Tell us a little bit about the Dionely, etc. experience this week.
Thank you. Well, Dionely TC, I focus on informing people about, mental health, what emotional abuse, psychological abuse is, how to identify it, how to survive it, and how to prevent it. And I do all that in Spanish. Like, I interview a lot of people that have been through that, survived it, experts that know a lot about it. And then my other platform is Desde Philadelphia, because I am from the Philadelphia area, and I interview people also.
215.
Yes. 267-215. Although my number is 609, but
keep it mysterious.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. No, and definitely follow Dionely ETC and all her social media platforms. And she's providing a lot of different diverse types of content, including our episode today. Please follow, share out with your friends. We're having a very special episode. We're going to introduce our A-list guest in a second. I did want to mention, we're going to talk about some other news headlines later in the show, but I did want to mention right at the top of the show, I speak for Dionely and the entire Bomba Live Founded Translation Familia. Estamos con la comunidad asiático-americano. We are with the Asian American Pacific Island community. Más de 100%. I mean, like thousands of percent. With all our heart and soul, we are with the Asian American community right now. The Georgia tragedy, where 8 people died, mostly Asian Americans, was obviously Asian American women, and specifically were targeted in that terrible racist attack that took place. But this is sort of the culmination of a series of several years here during this intolerant era, really, and it got ratcheted up during the COVID pandemic, that Asian Americans have been targeted by, people that son ignorante about the great value and that the Asian American community brings. So I know, Dionely, you reiterate those concerns that, that mucho amor for the Asian community, and we're here to stand in solidarity with them.
Absolutely. So #Stop Asian Hate. We need to remember our words matter, especially leaders saying ignorant things, calling the coronavirus the China virus. Like, there's a lot of ignorant people, just really dumb, stupid people that take it and fly with it. So we have to be really careful about what we say, be more responsible with the words that come out of our mouths.
And some of these people need to grow up, because regardless of what some ignorant person says, you need to have in your own consciousness an adult that, your insecurities are what you need to deal with. You need to deal with your mental health, your therapist. There's nothing wrong with that. But to take it out on these innocent women who are just trying to make an honest dollar, working hard, servicing other people, many Asian Americans, and we'll talk about this later, we'll talk about the COVID vaccine pandemic, are on the front lines as essential workers on every level, whether it's the beauty salon or the high-end medical professionals. Without our Asian American medical community, millions of us would have died. I mean, let's keep it real. They're such a big part of the response and survival in our country. But across the board, the Asian American community, we're with you. We've been in touch with Asian American friends and leaders around the country. And I encourage everyone to reach out to our Asian American brothers and sisters and just let them know, just as friends. Say, look, we're with you. We're thinking about you. whatever your community needs, we're here for you. So much respect, and we're going to keep that hashtag and that theme throughout the show. But let's get to our very special guest, Dionely. This is a man that I had the great fortune to reconnect with through the Clubhouse app. After many years, we've known each other for quite some time, but with everyone's busy schedules, and we're very fortunate to reconnect and have some very deep conversations on Clubhouse, which we'll have another one tomorrow that we'll talk about later. But this gentleman has really kind of created Dionely like his another industry. You know, there's comedy, and he's a very celebrated stand-up comedian. You've seen this man on HBO and all the major stand-up comics around the country. Has been up there with the best of the best. And there's motivational speakers, but he's really kind of created this incredible niche of inspirational comedy, which has serviced hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, particularly our young people. We're really excited to talk about him.
He's an award-winning empowerment comedian, corporate speaker, and mental health coach. Es una combinación, ya tú sabes.
Okay,
Eso como un mangú con los tres golpes.
He makes all the money. That's right. That's right. So let's introduce him. More inspirational than any comedian. It's certainly funnier than any boring inspirational speaker. Our great friend, Ernie G. What's up, dog?
Yeah. ¿Qué pasa, mi gente?
I'm so
Los
excited.
Boricua in the house.
You know it, brother.
What's up,
brother?
man?
Oh, my God. I can hear the waves from the Pacific Ocean as Ernie, this media Hollywood mogul, sits in his palatial mansion in the West Coast. Ernie, how are you, brother? Say hello to your family.
I'm doing so great, bro. It's so great to reconnect with you after all these years, bro. You met me when I was a lowly, struggling comedian living in my grandma's converted garage, bro. Back in the day, bro.
Back in the days.
Now I'm so famous. We have to tell people how famous I am, dude.
I'll tell you, Ernie, you live quite Karina Olivier from West Coast. A lot of people. Diana Lopez from West Covina saying hi. One of your friends out in the West Coast. Turns out we have more West Coast friends than I even realized until the last few days.
Hilarious.
We'll get into that later. But Ernie, I'm sorry. So we want to get into some of the mental health stuff. You know, you've been really, particularly during the COVID pandemic, helping our young people virtually and a lot of different platforms, help our young people work through this difficult time. We're going to have a lot of laughs here, and we're going to talk about another great passion of Ernie and ours, with some special surprises later in the show. The hoop stuff is a great mutual passion of ours, and we got to get that in for a moment, and we'll get to the news. But Ernie, we got to catch up with you, brother. So, I mean, you again, you're one of America's most celebrated stand-up comics, and again, you've really created this other unique industry of inspirational comedy. But that's not where your journey began. So, Ernie G, where did this journey begin for you?
This journey began as a young Latino man in my mom's belly before I was born. My parents were married. My dad met my mom and my dad met salsa dancing, and 9 months later, boom, Ernie G. And I used to be ashamed of that. I wouldn't tell people that story. And then I said it at a high school when I was performing one time, and some cholo came up to me after a show. You guys know what a cholo is, right? I have to explain a lot of my jokes regionally because in certain parts of the country,
there's a very sophisticated crowd, brother. You just do your thing.
I have to explain myself to some people because, like in LA, we call it's like what a cholo. Everyone knows is like a Mexican or Salvadoran gang member. It's what Mexicans and Salvadorans refer to as family members, right? Some of you like, don't say that, bro. Don't say that. When you on the East Coast, you can't say cholo, right? But you know, some gangster came up to me after my show when I admitted that my parents were never married and that my dad met my mom salsa dancing. My Puerto Rican dad met my Mexican mom salsa dancing. And 9 months later, boom, Ernie G. And this cholo come up to me and goes, hey, Holmes, can I talk to you for a second, dog? I said, what did I say, bro? What did I say? He said, no, te quiero dar mucho respeto, Holmes. I can't believe you put yourself on blast like that, homie. I'm like, what do you mean, dog? He said, hey, my parents were never married either. And until I heard you speak just now, my whole life, I thought I was a mistake. But after listening to you, I realized maybe I'm not. I'm like, yo, God doesn't make mistakes, bro. Your job is to figure out why you were put on this planet and give your life over to that. He said, mucho respeto, home. So now I let people know my parents were never married. My dad had 6 kids, all from different mothers. My dad was the ultimate papi chulo, right? And it's weird as a Latino kid when you grow up and you meet your brother or you meet your sister. Oh, you're my sister? Oh, nice to meet you, you know? Mexicans, that happens to us all the time, like at quinceañeras or bodas or whenever we have like a big party. We're like, this is your cousin. I go, another cousin? I had like 48 cousins. Now I have 59. Right. And so it's just this weird dynamic. But long story short, bro, parents never married, grew up to a single mom and always wanted to do comedy. My uncle was a kid star when my family came over from Mexico. My grandma used to take my mom and my tias to go make piñatas in the street. My uncle didn't want to get his hands all full of the glue and paper mache and watercolors. And my grandma was like, tienes que ayudarnos a hacer la plata. You have to help us make some money. So he would sing and dance on the street, and he'd make tips, and he made more propinas than my grandmother did selling piñatas. And so somebody discovered him and put him on a Saturday morning TV show, and he got discovered, and his stage nickname was Fosforito. And my uncle was like on shows like Bonanza and Gunsmoke. Here's a picture of my uncle. I don't know if you guys can see that. That was my uncle, Rafael Lopez, back in the day. See the show? It's kind of like a Desi Arnaz type show, Latin jazz in the morning. And he was on Gunsmoke, Bonanza, like all these shows. Whenever there was like a Mexican kid with a sombrero and a zarape, I'd say one time I was flipping through the channels like 2:00 in the morning, and they were rerunning an episode of Lassie, bro, old Lassie, the sheriff dog, and my Mexican uncle, who's 11 years old, comes out with a sombrero and a zarape. He's like, Senor Sheriff, we cannot find the Lassie. She is missing. I'm like, dude, that's my uncle. So my uncle always had this uncanny ability to tell jokes and to make the family laugh. I grew up in a typical Latino household where every party there'd be a fight and somebody would be yelling at somebody. Some uncle would get drunk and my abuelita would be like, ya lárganse de mi casa, babosos, ya váyanse todos. And my uncle would go, you guys, I got one. And he'd tell a joke. And then everyone would, Mexicans and Puerto Ricans, the way we tell jokes, we stretch them out, we exaggerate them. He would tell the punchline, boss, and everybody cracking up. And we went from yelling and fighting to laughing together. And I thought, dude, that's power. I want to learn how to do that. And so I started memorizing jokes. And my uncle would say, Neto, tell us the new joke. And then he would steal my jokes. He'd say, don't tell anyone. He'd steal my joke and tell it to the family 10 times funnier than I ever said it. So my dream was always to become a comedian. And I know the question that you were asking was, what's the evolution of Ernie G? I started doing comedy a long time ago. I got on a show called Que Locos with George Lopez and Gabriel Iglesias. I'm Not Fat, I'm Fluffy. A lot of people remember the Que Locos show. Some of you are like, we're Latinos. You remember that show?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of Puerto Ricans going, we're Puerto Rican. We can't afford cable, right? No,
they got Hulu. Don't worry about it. They can find it.
What happens is there's one Latino in the neighborhood that gets cable, and then the whole neighborhood taps into that one box right there.
How do we watch pay-per-views? You know what I'm saying?
It's like people with Netflix. One person has a password, and they log you into everybody else.
The modern time. So Ernie, it's so interesting because on some level, one of the things that's so fascinating about your path, and actually it was kind of a similar conversation we had last month with a fantastic actress who I know you know, who now is also a motivational speaker, April Lee Hernandez, who's now an author. So I encourage people to check out that episode from a few weeks ago. Fantastic conversation. But you two, I see some similarities because, look, let's be honest about it. I mean, you're still famous, but at some point, you definitely were like, one of the it comedians. And what's so interesting about your path is that most people would have gone for more fame, where you went for more substance and more fulfilling in your life. So talk about those forks in the road, because I would imagine you make on some level every day this decision is to strive for impact in your comedy and in your word message over a cheap laugh.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, all my buddies have Netflix specials now. You guys all know Gabriel Iglesias, Fluffy. He blew up and is one of the top comedians in the world. Gabriel and I started our careers together. Felipe Esparza, who has his second Netflix special that's on right now. And George Lopez, of course, you guys all know. And I could very easily have had a Netflix special. But what happened was, I don't know if I met you in 2005, bro. In 2005, I got asked by the National Council de la Raza to perform at their annual conference in Austin, Texas. And they said, it's got to be clean, 10 minutes of clean comedy. So I go up in front of this amazing crowd of like dignitaries and educated Latinos. And halfway through my set, the sound crashed. And I was like, and some dude ran up to me with a corded mic connected to this little speaker. He goes, keep talking to him. I'm like, dude, I'm done with my clean comedy. I got no more jokes that isn't about hoochie mamas and hood rats and all kinds of craziness. He said, just talk to them, tell them your story. And I'm like, Are there any educated Latinos in the house? Forgetting that it's the National Council de la Raza with the country's top educated Latinos. And so I just started telling my story, my autobiographical story. And the guy kept going, "You're doing great. Keep going." 52 minutes later, the sound system came up. He goes, "Great job. Let's give it up for Ernie G." And usually if I sell one or two of my CDs, I have a comedy CD entitled Mama's Boy. If I sell one or two of them, I made some gas money to drive home. That day, I sold all 30 of my comedy CDs. I collected a stack of business cards from the director of Hispanic marketing for General Mills, Adelante, which is Pepsi's, Hispanic marketing company, all kinds of Latino dignitaries. And then that year, I flew all over the country doing clean empowerment comedy. And the short version of the long story is the Hispanic College Fund found out what I was doing. They invited me to their gala in Washington, D.C. And for the next 6 years, I became the national spokesperson for the Hispanic College Fund, who flew me all over the country to inspire and empower Latino kids. And I fell in love with making a kid at a high school or at a college cry because I reminded them of their uncle or their tío. I love making people laugh at a comedy club. That's beautiful and fine. But I discovered my volition. I discovered my passion. What God put me on the planet for is to use comedy and laughter to inspire young people to be the best versions of themselves. So I've literally empowered and inspired over 500,000 high school and college students at hundreds of colleges and universities all over the country. And now I know that God put me on the planet to do that.
That's fantastic,
that
brother.
cool.
We're talking to Ernie. It's Ernie G, a special episode here on the show. Ernie, so I want to talk about now because, you've really kind of honed in on this piece, not only with this mental health angle or emphasis to your inspirational comedy and your presentations, but this is also in the context of our young people need even more support due to the pandemic.
Exactly.
So talk to me about that part of the journey, because now your work is more needed than ever before, but now it's more challenging to do it than ever before. So tell us about sort of Ernie G during the experience during COVID-19.
Well, COVID and quarantine has been the best thing that has ever happened to my career and to my life, bro. And I'm sorry for those of you out there who are really struggling. A lot of people are struggling with this, but the short version of the long story is I'm the first person in my family to go to college, and I got kicked out of Loyola Marymount, academically disqualified. A bunch of bad things happened to me. My tia died during that time, and at her funeral, I spoke at her funeral. And I said, I don't know why she died. Maybe she died so that I'd go back to college and graduate. I don't know why she died, but I am going to do whatever I can to be the best version of myself for my tia. And I worked my butt off, got back into college, and graduated. Now, I've told that story hundreds of thousands of times at colleges, universities all over the country, and kids really connect to the fact that I admit publicly that I was kicked out of school, that I was another Latino statistic, a dropout. And when I tell that story, students just come up to me after the show. I'll perform for 1,000 students at a high school auditorium. And after the show, there's a line of 50 kids. Mister, can I take a picture with you? Mister, can I tell you something? And they started reporting serious, deep, dark trauma. I got molested. I got beaten up. And I'm like, oh my God, these kids really need a safe space to vent and to talk about these things. So I have a degree from Loyola Marymount University right there, LMU in the house, in psychology. But I really spent the past 20 years of my life training myself as a mental health coach and taking transformational leadership courses. And what happened during COVID is I lost over $20,000 in gigs in March of 2020. All my live gigs went away. So I pivoted. I moved online. I started something called Zoom at Noon for teenagers. Just a volunteer thing. If you have a teen, have them come on a Zoom call with me and we'll talk mental health. We'll talk emotional intelligence. We'll talk about the power of forgiveness. We'll talk about having an attitude of gratitude. And what happened was that Zoom call exploded. And to this day, I still meet every Monday night with the original group of teenagers that I met back in April of 2020. And I've been hired all over the country at school districts, corporate events. I spoke at NASA Langley Research Center. I just booked a gig with Lockheed Martin, teaching mental health through comedy. And a quick, really beautiful, quick story, bro, is a kid who I performed at his high school 8 years ago calls me and goes, bro, I don't know if you remember me, but you performed at my high school, dude. And then you were the keynote speaker at my college graduation when I got my bachelor's degree from Cal State Dominguez Hills. Now I'm getting my master's. Would you come to my graduation? I was like, dude, it'd be my honor. So me and this kid have bonded, and I'm his mentor. And so I asked him to be a mentor to my high school students for a teen empowerment day that got canceled because of COVID. He goes, bro, I think I can get you funded through my organization for your Zoom calls. I go, what do you do, bro? And he works for First 5 LA, which is training people of color and minority communities how to be better parents to their 0 to 5-year-old kids. But nobody teaches the teens or the siblings of these kids how to be better siblings. And so I applied for a grant, and I got a $30,000 grant to do the Zoom calls that I was doing for free. Now I'm getting paid to do them, and I'm busier than I've ever been. So God has been preparing me for 20 years to not only be funny, but to elevate my mental health game. And now I'm spreading mental health everywhere I go through Zoom. So it's magical, man. Beautiful.
You're leading by example, because you went through all this tough times where all your live gigs were taken away, but then you found a way, and here you are. It's amazing. So I'm wondering, I know you performed in front of different audiences, and all audiences are not the same. There are some audiences that are tough. So I'm wondering, you don't have to tell me which audience was your toughest, but what story did you tell them to win them over? If you could share.
Oh my gosh. I thought we were going to talk about this later. My craziest gig ever was at Thomas Edison High School in North Philadelphia. I got flown.
Say it for the people in the back. Thomas Edison, bro.
Yes.
Bro.
Come on now.
The United States Hispanic Leadership Institute, USHLI, which Dr. Juan Andrade is the founder of. He's a civil rights icon. I love that dude.
I was his East Coast director, and I was there that day. That's my man. Come on.
Snap.
He doesn't even remember me. Okay, it's all good. Keep up, brother.
Was it Ray or Raphael? Which one is it, buddy? Anyways, just kidding. They flew me to the USHLI National Conference, and I performed in front of 3,000 students and killed it, and it was amazing. So then they fly me to Philly for this event, and they warned me. They said, this is known as one of the worst high schools in the country. You're going to have to go through 2 metal detectors to get into the campus. I said, let's do it. I love it.
You were like Michelle Pfeiffer in Dangerous Minds?
No, dude, way worse, because I'm not as white as her. Yeah. But yeah, exactly. I had to go through 3 metal detectors. I get up there, and there's all these African-American kids and a few Latino kids, and it was rowdy and crazy. And they're like, okay, everyone, let's give it up for Ernie G. Like, no proper intro. And I go, what's up, you guys? Within 2 minutes, some girl laughed loudly at a joke I told. Some other girl smacks her in the head, and a fight breaks out in the middle of my empowerment comedy performance. 100 kids stand up. Oh, kick her butt. Oh, yeah. And the teacher who hired me looked at me, and she was like, it's okay. Come down. Get off stage. It's okay. Come down. And I'm like, no. I got this. I said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for those of you who are listening. And a bunch of kids, no one's listening to you. About 60, 70 kids get up. They go to the back. The teachers take those girls outside. And I say, thank you for those of you who have remembered who you are. Those 2 young ladies have forgotten who they are. You are not in a gang. You are not a gangster. You are your abuelita and your abuelito's grandson. You are your mama and your daddy's child. You are a beautiful soul, and thank you for remembering who you are. I appreciate those of you who are still listening to me. And I just started talking methodically, and all of a sudden there was about 800, 900 students. They sat down and they started listening. And the teacher that was telling me, get off stage, I was like, I got this. I've done this for 20 years. I'll be fine. And all of a sudden, I didn't have to tell any more jokes, because once those kids sat down and started listening to me, I shared from my heart and soul. My parents were never married. My dad had 6 kids, all from different mothers. I know what you guys are feeling. I know what you guys are going through. But if I did it, then you can do it too. And I just shared my autobiographical story. I performed for the entire hour. They thought the show was going to be over in 5 minutes because of the fight. The teachers came up to, students came up to me. We took pictures, Instagram. The teachers were so blown away. They're like, oh my God, you have to come hang out with us. Tonight, we're doing a happy hour. I went to this happy hour with a bunch of drunk teachers that have to get drunk after a day like that. They invited me to the Phillies game. I went to the Philadelphia Phillies game with 12 teachers that were blown away that I actually continued my empowerment comedy show after a fight. They said, we've tried to have assemblies over and over again, and every time something like this happens, we just cancel it. This is the first time we've ever had a fight where the speaker stuck it out and was able to complete their assembly. And I said, I love these kids and they deserve my best. That happened in North Philly, bro. Edison High School. I'm going to get in trouble for mentioning that because there's people going, dude, I was there and I heard about that.
Well, kudos to you. I was moved listening to it. I wasn't even there. Que chulo. That's excellent.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. Yeah. So I have a special, anywhere that a kid has to go through a metal detector to get educated, they deserve a little extra love and they deserve my A game. And so I brought it and I gave it to them. And a lot of them added me on Facebook. I'm still friends with a lot of kids who were at that show. I have thousands and thousands of kids all over the country that I impacted them, and we're still friends years later. So it's really, really magical. It's beautiful.
Amazing. I love that. I love that you did that.
Yeah, it's cool. And I have so many amazing stories of students that I've met over the years who have developed and become, entrepreneurs, business owners. I have a buddy of mine. His name is Dr. Isaac Rodriguez, bro, and he became a Gates Millennium Scholar, and he was part of the Hispanic Youth Symposium that I was a part of. And in 2008, 12 years ago, I met the kid at the University of Richmond in Virginia, and he was already a beast, but we worked together for the next 10 years. He and his professor invented this this tooth thing. And anyways, long story short, he owns Sweet Bio, which is a company that uses engineering to come up with all of these beautiful things. The point is they're offering him $200-300 million for his company because this guy got his PhD in biochemical engineering, and he's just a beast. And he still thanks me for teaching him. If it is to be, it is up to me. If it is to be, it's up to me. I've had hundreds of thousands of students repeat that. And ultimately, our own happiness is in our own hands. We have people that love us, mentors who love us, teachers, family who love us. But ultimately, if we're going to kick butt in the world, it's because we say and we take 100% responsibility for it. So
I'll tell you, we're talking to the legend, Ernie G. Ernie, I want to give a shout out to our Instagram audience. I want to shout out Tanya Valencia, who's one of those students, a 10th grader from the DMV area, who's now one of my colleagues. Who's one of our education policy experts at Unidos US. So I just want to give her a shout out. She's giving you a lot of kudos. And she's saying she was one of those kids that you impacted a few years back, not that long ago. She's still very young. And we got Mozo. We got a lot of great friends. Sinbad, our great friend from Dallas, Fort Worth. That's one of our clubhouse moderator buddies. And Mosas Pionas from Chicago, another friend, Janet. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. Bernie, give yourself a chance to towel off because you're already fired up. We're going to do a quick news update. And then Dionely, big mental health speaker, is going to quiz Ernie on how to translate for our people some of these very intense, complicated mental health concepts that Dionely is an expert on that I have no idea what she's talking about. So we're going to hear first. We're going to go through the emotional spectrum with these two clips because the first one is last week we had the honor of Luis Suave Gonzalez, a great friend of ours from Philadelphia, who has the hottest podcast in the audio world. The Suave podcast that chronicles his journey as a 17-year-old who was sentenced to life in prison to now a redeemed activist. And that's just an incredible story. So that he shared with us along with his colleague, Marina Hossa, the legendary journalist. They were on the show last week. And then Dionely, we're going to have a little lighter clip that is an ode to you, my friend. So we'll come back and Dionely will help us lead us with our news programming.
I want people to know that we are more than our worst mistake. And if you don't have no compassion, then you don't have a right to be in the business of talking to people, period. And I found in Maria's friendship what I didn't find in the school system, what I didn't find in my household or in my community, which was compassion and empathy.
Dígame, vecino.
Hola, vecina, ¿me puede mover el cajo ese? ¿Y de qué usted ríe?
Como ustedes los puertorriqueños mencionan la R.
Es que ustedes hablan con la I esa, ¿de qué tú hablas, ah?
Nosotros somos los originales del arroz con gandules.
Ni siquiera se dice gandule, es guandule.
Gandules.
Eso tiene que ser editado.
Y además, nosotros hemos ganado más Serie de Caribe en la pelota.
¿Y de dónde ustedes sacaron esa información?
Oh yeah? But you Dominicans don't know how to speak English.
Dije que no sabemos inglés.
Your fucking mother.
Ahora tú hablas español.
There, I tell you, got much love to Funky Bacalao, Jersey Rican. I don't know any of the Dominicans, so shout out to our Dominican crew down there in South Florida.
I know the Dominicans. Shout out to
I know, yeah, but there's some there's our social, what we call our Latino social media all stars here. They contribute to the show in a lot of ways, and we're gonna do something very special at Bomba Live 2 with the social media crew. I'm going to be announcing in the next few weeks. We're going to take it to the next level with Avila and our posse down there. We're going to get back very soon to Ernie G to continue to talk about these conversations, particularly about mental health with our young people. But we want to make sure we get a few minutes in to get to some of these very important news headlines. So Dionely, help lead us in that conversation.
Okay, so this is a rapid fire. We need your quick takes on these important issues so we can get back to our conversation with Ernie G. So in Bomba Live News, President Biden last week signed the American Rescue Plan, a $1.9 trillion aid package to help people through the pandemic. Ray, besides the stimmy checks we are all waiting for, how else will the ARP help Latinos? I know some of us got it already, but how will the ARP help Latinos?
Yeah, so everybody's worried about the stimmy, which I understand because it's a couple bucks and we could use it. But I think the bottom line is it's very important that people realize, and I want to put a graphic up here while we have this quick conversation, is that this bill goes well beyond that stimulus check, fam. You can see some of the headlines here. You're talking about keeping our folks in their homes. So, mortgage and rental assistance programs. We're talking about expanded health care. This is going to help over 1 million of our folks have health care. Whether it's expanding COBRA or Medicaid or some of these other programs. There's going to be funding in this, obviously, for the vaccines. So we have more access. We're going to talk about the vaccines in a second. But the bottom line is this is the biggest social program in our lifetimes. I mean, you have to really go back to the 50s, post-World War II Reconstruction period to find a social program that is going to lift as many people out of poverty, disproportionately minorities and children and Latino children. So this was actually a great victory for us. I know we're focused on the minimum wage piece, which would have been an extra cherry on top, for our low wage workers and some of the other machinations. But the bottom line is that this was a great win for our community. And I said in my social media post recently, thank the organizer in your life for this, because if it wasn't for that organizer that knocked on doors and text all their friends to go vote and kept us aware, while the rest of us, some of us sit back and don't do much, guess what? The organizer is the one that pulled us through on this because we needed every single ounce of activism to get to 50-50 in the Senate. So, and because without that, none of this would happen. So it's going to benefit us in ways well beyond the stimulus. And that's something we have to give the American Rescue. The American Rescue Act is something that we have to thank the Biden administration and his leadership for.
Absolutely. So speaking of COVID, over 7 million Americans have received at least one dose of a COVID vaccine, but Latinos are not getting their fair share. Ray, we are almost 20% of the country, but have only received 9% of the vaccinations. ¿Qué pasa aquí? Why do you think that is?
Well, this is a symptom of the larger inequities in our society. So let's look at Philadelphia, for example. So where you have in the state of Pennsylvania, about 9% of the state's population is Latino. Only 3% of the people that have gotten the vaccines are Latino, right? So they say we're going to expand. FEMA comes in and says we're going to expand the amount of people getting the vaccine, and we're going to even focus on certain zip codes where Blacks and Latinos tend to live. So they have certain days and times where you have to be from North Philly or West Philly to get the vaccine. But guess what? People say, oh, downtown Philadelphia is a great central location. But guess what? If you don't have transportation and you're a senior citizen and you don't have the information even where to go and just set an appointment on the website. Well, good luck for people who don't have Wi-Fi access, aren't literate with computers, don't have a computer. So even if you have access, people that don't have the luxuries that many of us have are not able to get them. Look, my parents are better off than most. I mean, they're retired. They have decent incomes coming in as retirees. They're relatively functionally literate. And I had to pull for them to get it. And I still had to take time off from work to take them down there, pay parking, and assist them. So my point is that these are the inequities that are crowding up. So I encourage everyone. Every community is different, every state's different. So I encourage everyone to just, if you want to deal with this, just go on your social media or text all your friends and say, look, if anyone needs any help getting this vaccine, I can do something on the computer for you. I can give you a ride. I can pay for your Uber down there. Help your folks, because even when we have situations, I was just talking to some friends in Arizona, they put a vaccine location in the hood in South Phoenix. But guess what? If you live 10, 15 minutes away, you ain't walking in that heat. And if you don't have transportation, you don't have someone to take you, you don't have someone to communicate to you with the times and everything else in your language, you're still not going to get access to the vaccine. So it's very important that we help our brothers and sisters. It's a very local issue. Every situation is different with eligibility. But get on social media and say, look, how can I help people? And you'll find a way to help somebody get the vaccine.
Awesome. Well, finalmente the House of Representatives passed the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women's Act. This version of VAWA increases protection for Spanish-speaking victims, prevents stalkers for purchasing guns, and increases rape prevention education. This is great news, but why, Ray, is it expected not to pass in the Senate?
Because the Republicans are full of it. Because the Republicans are in the pocket of the gun lobby, and the gun lobby doesn't want boyfriends being restricted from having guns if they've been convicted of stalking their ex-girlfriend. So this is so disgusting, and they don't get enough hate for it, enough grief for it, and we have to call. That's literally the reason, because they don't want people to lose their guns.
They're focused more on not losing money from people buying guns than from losing lives.
They're more worried about a man. Listen to this. Mm-hmm. They're more worried about a man who's been convicted of stalking their girlfriend than the victim. And this bill, updated version of Violence Against Women, as you said, Dionely, would have increased resource for Spanish language people, which, as Christina and you all have chronicled on our shows and all of your platforms, it's a huge issue in our community, and would have education programs to teach our young men and our young people about, to challenge this dynamic of rape culture and address this issue at a younger age. This is what we need, preventative measures, not these people beholden to the gun lobby. So very disgusting behavior. On a lighter note, Dionely, before we get back to Ernie G, and I'll get Ernie G involved in this conversation. Ernie, we got to go deep with Dionely. I got to ask her the very deep questions. Dionely, J-Lo y A-Rod, ¿qué pasó? I mean, is love dead forever if J-Lo and A-Rod can't stay together? Come on.
Is anybody surprised? He's a pro athlete. That's what they do. Like, she needs to just, if you're going to be with a pro athlete, 99% chance you're going to get cheated on.
Wow. That's a damning testimony. That's incredible. So do you think there's a chance? Let me ask you a question. Do you think it's real, or do you think they're playing us? That's really the question. Do you think they're going back and forth because they said they were broken up, then they went back together, and now it's confusing and the kids were crying? So what's going on here? You think it's a publicity stunt, or you really think they're going through it like that?
They're really going through it like that, bro. Look, I've known J-Lo since she was a co-owner of the Conga Room way back in the day.
Nice.
She dated.
I've had some good times at that Conga Room, brother, in LA.
Yeah.
She dated one of the waiters?
She dated one of the waiters, and she married him.
Yohani. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Exactly. And I Paul Rodriguez had a comedy show at the Conga Room, and it was one of my very first. I still have a poster somewhere of like J-Lo and Jimmy Smits, who were all part of the owner group of the Conga Room.
Absolutely.
And that guy sued J-Lo for years. They were caught up in litigation for years, but then she married Chris Judd, the choreographer. I opened for Mark Anthony, who was married to J-Lo. He was part of a concert series called Los Tres en Concierto with Alejandro Fernandez and Cheyenne and Mark Anthony. I opened for them down in Orange County, and I got to hang out backstage with J-Lo and Mark Anthony. And
so what's going on here, brother? Give us the scoop. What's going on? Is she just a hopeless romantic? What's going on, brother? You got inside information, it turns out.
She's just a bad ass mother effer that ain't gonna be listening to no one. She's gonna do her thing, and if you try to dim her light, she just moves on, And there was a part of me that was like, come on, J-Lo. What I heard was that Mark Anthony wanted her to raise their twins that they had. And that she right away started working, like right after having the twins. And he was like, Mommy, I got us. Why don't you stay home and take care of the twins? And she was like, oh, hell no, I got work to do. People to see, places to be.
I'm the biggest star in the world.
Exactly.
I mean, South is nice, but I'm the icon here.
I gotta say, I love J-Lo because I've known her since like way back, like right after she was a fly girl for In Living Color. That was where she got her big start. And who was the only Latina at the presidential inauguration besides Sonia Sotomayor? J-Lo. So we got to give her love. I'm very proud of her. A-Rod has been a douche his entire life. He's a baseball player. It's the same thing with Tony Parker and Eva Longoria. When Eva Longoria married Tony Parker, the San Antonio Spurs, everyone was like, dude, Tony's too nice for her. Tony is too sweet. She's all Hollywood. She's all hype. It ended up being the other way around. Tony ended up cheating on Eva Longoria with a fellow teammate's wife. He cheated with a fellow teammate's wife. So
anybody wants to act surprised. I think esta fistia, she's infatuated because, there's a positive part to dating a pro athlete, but there's that negative part that they're players, like literally and figuratively, they're players. So she knows how to use, when bad things happen, she knows how to use it to her advantage, how to market it.
I can judge her all I want, and I could have all kinds of opinions, but J-Lo has turned herself into one of the most recognizable names and butts on the planet. So much love to J-Lo.
You could certainly have done worse. So Dionely, so you're going to help us go through this very exercise. Then I got a special surprise for Ernie during the hoop segment. So what Dionely's going to do is she's going to share with us a few mental health terms that she uses in her Dionely, etc., her various podcasts to discuss this and help us work through these traumas in our lives, particularly our women. So much respect to the great you do work in the Idioma de Español, which is very important to get this information out in language. And Ernie's going to help us translate for us regular folk to understand what this is really about. So Dionely, share with us this first complicated mental health concept that Ernie's going to help us flesh out.
Well, it's not too complicated, but it's the first step. And when you go into an abusive relationship, because people think just leave them. And it's no, they don't start off mean and evil. They start off with what's called love bombing, el bombardeo amoroso, where they're they're great listeners. They tell you everything you want to hear. They have all the time in the world for you. And it's all rapid. It's all quick. They want to spend all the, every minute of the day with you. They just give you everything that you want at first to get you hooked. So that's love bombing. So I don't know how would you break that down to someone?
Well, can I just put everybody on blast on this podcast? The reason we came up with this segment is because yesterday we went over today's show and my beautiful co-host here was describing this book she had just written and using all these amazing terms. And she was saying stuff like narcissistic projection.
Triangulation.
And I was like, does that mean you are full of your own stuff and then you try to make everyone think that they're full of their stuff, but you're all consumed with your stuff? And she goes, exactly. I go, I don't understand these big mental health terms, but I definitely know how to translate it for the raza, for the people. And I think this love bombing thing is very, very simple. Most Latino men are chiqueado hasta las cachas from their moms and their dads. And I mean, their moms and their tías and their grandmas. Ay, qué lindo. Ay, papi chulo. Eres el más chulo en todo el mundo. And they go, dude, that feels good. So I'm going to do that to a girl. I'm going to make her feel special and loved. But then what happens is the moment that a guy has the experience, I got her, dude. I got her. We're bored of the chase. We're bored of that. So then we just leave that alone, and then we go find another one and say, mommy, you're the only one for me. I got you? Okay.
That day.
You're the only one for me. Yeah, exactly. You're the only one for me. Oh, you're my mundo. You're my everything. And then we go do it to as many people as we can so we could drop our seed everywhere like my dad did, babosos.
That's toxic. That's just, no, it's not acceptable, people. And what about triangulación? That's where una persona, they put two people against each other. Then they stand back and watch them fight.
Dude, we were taught that from a child. I just fell in love. I got one knee on Valentine's Day and proposed to my Peruvian girlfriend, and we are now engaged. And I'm sharing that because her parents, they live with us. And whenever one of the parents don't get what she want from my girlfriend, my fiance, then they go complain to the other one, and then the other one goes and asks. So my dad-in-law, he knows he's not going to get something from my girlfriend. So then he tells the wife to go ask my girlfriend. And she's like, why doesn't he ask? He should ask, not you, mom. No, mija. And then now they got the daughters involved. We love to include other people so that we don't ever have to put ourselves out there. And all of a sudden it's all covert and stuff. And I'm just like, dude, why can't we just have straight communication? ¿Eso qué es? ¿Qué es? Nosotros no hacemos eso. Look, I want you to know, I love the fact that you are a mental health professional because you went and studied and got educated on all these dynamics. The challenges, being able to relay this to the gente, because the gente, we just go like, ¿pa qué? No quiero saber esas cosas. I just want to get what I want whenever I want it. So just shut up with all that educated stuff.
So, full disclosure, I'm not a mental health professional, but I do interview mental health professionals. What happened was I was in this very toxic, emotionally and psychologically abusive relationship. And the way I got out of it was with a lot of self-love and reconnecting with my support system. And then I ended up like studying, like, wait, what happened? Because I came out of it, I'm like, what happened? And I remember people telling me, oh, you're what I was in it. Oh, they're gaslighting you. I'm like, no. When I looked it up, esto de novela, como que gaslighting? Because they're going to make me think I'm going crazy. No, I wouldn't fall for that. I'm too smart for that. And then another friend is like, they're gaslighting you. I'm like, let me look deeper into this. And it's like that, like they say things and they deny they said it. No, you imagined that didn't really happen and things like that. And then if you want to also explain that so people understand what gaslighting is.
Well, here's the bottom line. We could go through all of these terms and I can give you like the everyday interpretation of it all. The bottom line is this. For some reason, Latinos internalize a lot of the ugly racism that we grow up facing. We see the mainstream society thinks of us as less than, and then we internalize that. And then what happens is when we become educated, when we start making a little bit of money, when we fall in love, we're still trying to fill that hole. And so we lash out when that hole seems to be threatened. But what I tell Latinos everywhere, this is for everyone, Black people, white people, Latinos, all of us, until we heal our personal wounds, we're going to project our angst and our traumas out into the world. But when we love ourselves and fall back in love with ourselves, then people can be however they are around us, and it has no impact on who we get to be in life. So the greatest gift you can give yourself is to work on yourself. I acknowledge you because through pain, you healed yourself and you learned, and now you're sharing that with everybody. And I want you to know I am the exact same. Anybody that ever became great because of a major failure in their life. Necessity is the mother of invention, but true passion, true commitment, true education typically is a function of some trauma that happened in our life. And we decided to not let the trauma have power over us. We took the power in our own hands. If it is me, it is up to me. And we become the beast that gets to share this wisdom with the rest of the world. Dang, that was beautiful.
Woo! My man Ernie G dropping jewels as he always does. We're so happy to have Ernie G. We're having a great conversation with Ernie G and our fantastic co-host, Dionely Reyes. Catch her on all her Dionely, etc. platforms, etc. We talked some serious stuff, but you know what? This last segment, me and Ernie got to get a little back to the high school vibe. One of the things that's been so great two other great things to learn about Ernie is that we share a mutual love and passion for basketball, especially as Latinos, especially Puerto Ricans. We'll talk about that in a second. And it turns out that we also share a mutual best friend pretty much who had to be a part of this show. When me and Ernie make the next remake of The Three Amigos on Netflix, he will be the third amigo. He's also a great member of our family and a fantastic motivational speaker in his own right. And he thinks he's the best Puerto Rican point guard in Colorado. Let's see.
Jeffrey Vargas is in the house.
Vargas is here, bro.
What's up? Oh, man, love. There's nothing but love in this house. This
is a Bomba Live moment, family. This is a Bomba Live moment. Jeffrey, brother, first of all, have you dug out of the snow yet, brother? I mean, you got 5 feet out there. Talk to us.
About 45 minutes for us, they had 5 feet. We got 3. as if that's, something special. It is life in Colorado is different because not only do we get 3 feet, they still have an expectation that you clean your sidewalks off and, let me know 24 hours. Wow. So let's just be very clear.
Ridiculous.
Your boy is not built for that. That said, you got to take care of the house, right? Or you make a friend. So right down the street, I made a friend who has a snowblower machine, man. Oh, goodness.
I know you paying top dollar for that service, brother.
Oh, let me tell you what.
You're getting fleeced.
The thank yous were just immense. And
well, of course, you're paying for his vacation. That's what you're doing.
You have to. And in fact, I was going to call Ernie G and tell him, you know what, dude, I should start like a GoFundMe fund for like a monster snowblower in Colorado. Because look, should be a Puerto Rican exception. Like you're in Colorado and now you're buried under 3 feet of snow. That's not right. There's nothing right about that, man.
I agree with that. I mean, first of all, you lost the greatest Puerto Rican player to ever play for the Rockies, Nolan Arenado. He doesn't play for you anymore. And now you got to deal with this. I mean, it's hard being a Puerto Rican in the Rockies right now. It's so interesting because Ernie, so Jeffrey's been talking about you for years. Yeah, it's one of my dear homies, brother. And over the last years, we've gotten to reconnect. He said, no, you got to meet Ernie, man. I mean, you guys reconnect. It's been a long time. You guys were like be best friends again. Then I meet you on reconnect with Clubhouse. Then I text Jeff this weekend. I said, bro, we all connected. You can come on the show. What do you want to talk about? You're a great motivational speaker. He goes, I want to talk about basketball, bro. March Madness, dog. Let's get in it. And then Ernie shared with me that he's not only great hoops guy, there's a Puerto Rico connection, there's a loyal Marymount Philly connection. So Ernie, let's just talk about the hoops, brother. Where does your passion, because it's not about love, it's about passion for basketball come from, brother? Let's break it down for people.
This is a picture of the Puerto Rican national basketball champions, Los Piratas de Quebradillas. And this man right here is Joaquin Avila, my dad's dad, who was a national basketball champion. And that picture, I had it cleaned up, but it was handwritten with all of their names on it. And I remember in first grade, I started a new school. We went out to recess. The coach goes, here, guys, threw this around. He threw a basketball at me. I had never shot a basketball. I never had a dad teach me how to do this. I grabbed the ball, and I threw it at the rim, and it went thunk, thunk. It banked in. And all my friends were like, oh, dude, how did you do that? I was like, I don't know. I just always knew how to play basketball. I always had a little bit of rhythm. My mom has no rhythm. My mom doesn't know how to play basketball, so I know I got it from my Puerto Rican dad, baby. So I was a big fan of the Lakers. Magic Johnson is my hero. I have a picture of me with Magic Johnson taking the Magic Johnson basketball camp. And I managed the basketball team at Loyola Marymount in 1989 when Hank Gathers led the country in rebounding and in scoring. Only 2 players had ever done it before him. He was the third. And then he died on the basketball court in March of 1990. And I've told that story to hundreds of thousands of people. I was in Japan entertaining our troops, and I told that story. And I always have people go, dude, I remember Hank Gathers. So it runs deep with us, bro.
It is deep. And there's so many interconnections. And I know Jeffrey's so excited to get this conversation. I wanted to share this. First of all, for y'all youngsters out there watching, I need y'all taking notes. Because this is the real deal about the culture. Because it is about culture. And basketball is such a big part of our culture. And Latino culture, really Puerto Rican culture. As you said, look, Puerto Rican basketball is really more popular than baseball in Puerto Rico. And it has been for quite some time. With the women as well. We have a Olympic class Puerto Rican women's team now. So it runs deep. And there's so many connections here, brother, because not only am I a big fan of Puerto Rican basketball, we're going to talk about this new phenom that me and Jeffrey are geeking out on all weekend. But, I'm a Philly guy, I'm a North Philly guy. So my basketball culture comes from that, too. I'm very good friends with Aaron McKee, former Temple star, now the Temple NBA Sixth Man of the Year, good friend. I grew up with these guys. I went to high school with Marvin Harrison, who was actually a top point guard as well, and a bunch of those guys from those years. So when you talk about Hank Gathers, Bo Kimball, that was the pride of Philly at that time. And the pride of the West Coast, the pride of West Coast basketball. And that's a big part of our journey, and was a friend of Aaron McKee's, who, again, I'm good friends with. So this connection runs so deep. Jeff, first of all, let's talk about the shirt you're wearing. Wow, brother. Wow, that's heavy. Oh, that's Magic, right?
Magic Johnson.
Okay. Not too shabby. That's a nice piece to have. That's a little piece of memorabilia. So we're talking our basketball culture, Ernie. Jeff, Terrapins, brother. Show school people on what that shirt's about. You wearing?
So let me just stand up for just a second. For those of you who don't know, it's like that's just a Maryland jersey, number 34. I'm going to ask you to Google the name Len Bias.
Woo!
Len Bias,
legend,
an absolute legend. I would argue, and I think it'd be tough. I'd go toe to toe with folks. Arguably, potentially the greatest college basketball player.
Oh, right there, yeah.
And here's the deal with Len Bias. Len Bias went to Northwest High School in right by the University of Maryland, in Hyattsville, Maryland. He has a younger brother named Jay. Jay used to play basketball with us as well. And Len Bias had a smoother jump shot than Michael Jordan, was faster than MJ, jumped higher than MJ, and was stronger than MJ. And in fact, you can Google it and look up some specials that have come out recently where MJ doesn't like to talk about Len Bias because they were for real rivals. In fact, the day the Dean Dome opened back in the mid 80s, the first game that they played was Maryland, and Len Bias lit them up and walked away with a W and made a statement. He was arguably on his way to becoming an incredible NBA player. He was drafted second by the Boston Celtics. And this fits alongside my very, very, very good friend, Ernie G, who has devoted his life to helping kids. Len Bias was a big kid. And after being selected number 2, he was at a party where a man named Brian Tribble put some cocaine in his Coke. That's in his drink. And Len Bias took that drink and he passed away and he died. And when he died, I get emotional now. If you knew him, if you knew his game, if you knew what he was about, it was a transformational moment for every kid in the DMV. Every single one of us that love hoops, because he was a hero. Larry Bird said, man, I can't wait to play with this guy. And I would argue that all those championships that came out of the United Center, nah, baby, that wouldn't have happened. Nope. Len Bias would have something to say about
It's one of the great what could have beens in modern sports. There's no question about it. So we go to 2021, Jeff. And I must say, about a year ago, I reached out to you and said, Jeff, I've discovered something you're going to be very interested in. We got this kid out of Puerto Rico. He's now at Long Island Lutheran. He's going to play LeBron's kid on TV tomorrow. You may want to check it out. Andres Corbello has become a phenomenon. He plays for USC Illinois. He is the best Puerto Rican hoops prospect that's come out probably since J.J. Barea, who ended up having a great NBA career. So, Jeff, not only is it just so much fun to watch this little Latino guy do his thing out there with the big boys in the Big Ten and the top teams, but there's a lot of lessons that we take out of his ambition and his artistry on the court, which I know you're teaching your son that you wanted to share here on the show.
Yeah, let me say this. That young man left his home at the age of 13. He left Puerto Rico at 13 to go to New York. And if you think about that, how many of us know a 13-year-old, whose skill it would be so good that they could cross the country, across the world almost, and at the same time handle themselves at 13. Guy struggled with English language. In fact, he says that, without Google Assistant, he wouldn't have made it in the first year. His first words were like, where's Burger King? Where's McDonald's? I got to get fed. But he grew, he learned, and his game grew. And today, the reason why he was Big Ten Sixth Man of the Year is because that guy's principle of playing is something we got to adopt. See, like Ernie, I believe you can learn from people who are younger than you. So this guy's, a quick 18, but let me tell you or 19, what he's taught, I think all of us is, if you want to be the best player on your court of life, make those around you better than they are. So if you look at the quotes from the articles of the guys on the team in Illinois, they'll tell you to a person that they had to get used to him because all he wanted to do was dish a dime, make them look good. So Underwood, their coach, says at the beginning, our trouble the first half of the year is these guys didn't know how to handle his passes because they didn't know where they were coming from, because all he wanted to do was make them better. So I'm loving this kid, man, and I'm loving his work ethic. I'm loving where he's going to go. And the headline today in the Chicago Tribune said, "I do it for my family, and I do this for my island." Come on, man.
I mean, you gotta love the kid. Ernie, I know you love the hoops, man. Talk to us about, I mean, from Loyola Marymount to, you know, what has basketball taught to you, brother? Because I know it's been a big part of your life.
It's been a huge part of my life. If I may, bro, I just want to like kind of quickly segue. The reason that we're so passionate about these players, Len Bias, Hank Gathers, and the young kid you guys are just talking about.
Un saludo, papá. I want to make sure we get that shout out to him, man.
Right? Is that I believe that Latinos are hungry for heroes. We're hungry for heroes. We need people that we can say, that's me, dude. I can be like that guy, right? When I was a kid, bro, my favorite show, I'm going to age myself, was Charlie's Angels because they were gorgeous with Farrah Fawcett and Kate. But my favorite was Jacqueline Smith. Yeah. Not because she was the most prettiest. Well, she was the prettiest. But because she looked Latina. I was so hungry to find a woman that looked Latina. And
the Daisy Duke phenomenon. And it turns out she was Latina, but that's another story.
Daisy Duke, right? But the only Latina I knew when I was a kid was Charo, Cuchi, right? Jacqueline Smith was my favorite Charlie's Angel. Why am I sharing that with you? Because I've been writing a book called The Most Famous Latinos You've Never Heard of right here. And it has all these amazing Latinos.
It's an incredible cover.
Household names. That's me, of course. This is Mary right here. This is Mary Espinosa, an original cast member of the Mickey Mouse Club, right here, bro. This is Joe Kapp, who was on the cover of Sports Illustrated magazine as the toughest Chicano in the NFL. This is Luis Avalos, who was an original cast member of the Electric Company with Morgan Freeman, Rita Moreno. You guys all know Rita Moreno, of course. Sure. And then here's Cantinflas. A lot of people don't know that Cantinflas was the funniest man on the planet when Charlie Chaplin was at his height. And then, here, of course, is Dolores Huerta. Culture Clash is the only sketch comedy troupe to ever have a primetime television show on Fox. And this is Pedro Gonzalez, who was one of the funniest comedians of our time. It is up to us to celebrate our heroes. It is up to us to find and cultivate our heroes. And Ray Collazo, I know that this podcast has behind it as a spirit finding these heroes like Maria Inoosa. And the last thing I'll say is I got a call from a kid who I had performed at Washington State. She was a student from the University of Idaho who drove an hour with a bunch of Mecha students to see me perform at Washington State because they never have any Latinos at the University of Idaho. 3 years later, she's doing an internship for Latino USA, the NPR show that Maria Hinojosa hosts. And she said, Ernie, we want to interview you for this radio program. I'd be like, that's amazing. Let's do it. I overhear one of her colleagues say, who are you talking to? Is that Ernie G? Ernie G, the comedian? Oh my God, he performed at my high school. A kid from Virginia who was a student at VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University. They were both doing an internship in New York for Maria Inoosa, and Maria Inoosa interviews me for Latino USA, and I had a kid from Idaho and a kid from Virginia who were both interning in New York. And it just speaks to the fact that we are everywhere. We have amazing heroes everywhere, and it's up to us to find these heroes and to celebrate them. So thank you, Ray, for doing a podcast like this where we're celebrating amazing role models like Jeffrey Vargas and like Dionely and like Ernie G.
Absolutely. And I really want to make sure we give all of our guests and my co-host the opportunity to say some final words, wrap up the show. Dionely, I know it's been a lot of fun. Ernie's a lot of fun. And first and foremost, and a real inspirational conversation, Dionely. So just wanted to give you a second. And if you have anything you want to shout out, I know you always have a lot of great content on your platforms.
No, I already shared my platforms, Dionely TC, there's the Philadelphia also. And also, I want to thank you, Ernie G, because you're planting seeds of empowerment all over the country and all over the world. So I really appreciate that. And like you said, like it's up to us to water our own seed, but someone has to plant it. So, and you're one of those people. And then we become those people that are able to plant seeds. Exactly. The last thing I'll leave everybody with is this. When you hear the words Latino leader, who comes to mind? For years, it was varied all over the country. You think of black leaders, you knew instantly 7 or 8 people popped into your head. When you hear Latino leaders, Sonia Sotomayor, okay, J-Lo,
right?
AOC.
Yeah, maybe bounces AOC.
We don't have 2 or 3 people that just pop in our head. So it's up to us to create our Latino leaders. It's up to us to be the Latino leaders in our community. And I hope Ernie G is doing a good job of honoring that spirit.
Absolutely, brother. You're incredible. Jeff, brother, we'll be texting each other throughout March Madness. By the way, if Illinois and Georgia Tech win, you'll have 2 Puerto Rican point guards in that game, by the way. So that's something to look out for. Some Latinos making some moves in the hoops. But Jeff, anything else on your mind, whether it's hoops or being part of this inspirational conversation?
Yeah, look, anytime, this is a really special moment for me. I'm going to have to take a meditative moment after this is done, because to be together with you and Ernie G, that's synergy, my man. That's synergy. Mm-hmm. And I say that because we've known each other in different parts and in different activities. Yeah. But, we all come together at a time for a reason and a season, because things are way bigger than we are. And Ernie has put us on the right road, and your platform puts us on the right road to say 2 things, right? One, we have to find those Latino leaders, and then we got to celebrate them loudly. So the reason why for years I was saying you got together with Ernie G, I kind of joke. I say, Ernie, I pimp you out all the time, man. And I do. It's because I believe in who he is as a person. I believe in the character that he has and the capacity he has to change lives. And let me tell you what, brother, I believe the same thing about you. And so all we have to do, man, is continue to give ourselves the opportunity to say the right things, do the right things, and be the right person. And there's a whole cadre of people who can grow to be the people they need to be. Seed planted, tree rooted, growth happens.
Wow. Thank you so much for those kind words, brother. And, how I feel about you. And want to, again, shout out Dionely. I reached out to her a couple years ago with her book. Said, hey, would you like to be on this show? And she really has not only been a great contributor, but she's really been inspired by this platform. I think it's safe to say to, grow her own social media and podcast platform. She inspires a lot of people, and she's a big part of this journey with the rest of my collaborators too, especially my Latina Poderosas that help me with the show all the time, and Albert in the background. So there's a lot of people involved in this, but it takes a team, and you have to take a step. And, I'm literally sitting in the closet here doing this, and it doesn't seem like very glamorous, but to your point earlier, Ernie, these kind of moments, you can't put a price tag on them, in terms of, and I know we're inspiring a lot of people. I'm getting some incredible feedback on social media around how you've touched people tonight, Ernie and Dionely and Jeff. Saludos, Andres Corbello. Do your thing this weekend, young man. Keep it up, brother. We want to see Illinois at least in the Final Four. And again, want to thank the incredible, legendary Ernie G. Follow him on all social media platforms, and we're going to keep chatting. Want to let people know that we'll be on Clubhouse tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern, for our Latinos Do Activista Rise Up edition of the show. So if you're on, just look for the Latinos Do Clubhouse activists and political activists and podcast hosts, but Dr. Patricia Campos, who has an incredible personal story as escaping El Salvador during the Civil War to be a Cornell University graduate and just one of the great Latina political activists that we have in the country. I was on her Activista Rise podcast today, so you can definitely check that out. So we'll be on Clubhouse 12 o'clock Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, and we're going to keep working together. Jeff, Ernie, Dionely, y'all are some of the best folks, and thank you all so much for watching this week's Bomba Live Found Translation. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, Ray.
See you guys.